Joe Manchin, when he was on the Fox Sewer on Sunday, he said, quote, "I've always said if I can't go back home and explain it, I can't vote for it," end quote. Well, you dumb shit. Here's another one. Manchin's not the brightest bulb in the marquee either, but consider, with a few exceptions, including my dear friend Robin Kincaid, consider the population of West Virginia. If you won't, Karen Tumulty, writing the Washington Post, will do it for you. Anyway, that's I'll do it. I'll get to that in a second. But Manchin, that's how he explained his announcement Sunday that he cannot vote for the hallmark of his party's agenda, a transformational $2 trillion measure that would overhaul health care and education and climate initiatives and immigration and the tax code, all of it. But Joe Manchin? Nah. Now, this means this is likely going to be the death knell for the centerpiece of Biden's administration and the Democratic Party. And the Republicans just love this. And I mentioned over the weekend on my podcast over the weekend that Manchin is his war chest, his money is being just fueled incredibly to an incredible degree with money from right-wing organizations in this country, Christian fascist organizations who are backing him. Some liberal Democrats were quick to say that Manchin would pay a political price for it. Don't count on that. Bernie Sanders said, quote, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to the people of West Virginia, end quote. Well, that would be if the people of West Virginia were sensible. But you have to remember that Trump won the state of West Virginia by almost, 60 percentage points? He got well, here it is. Last year, Trump won 70% of the Mountain State vote, stronger showing than he made in any other state but Wyoming. If 70% of the people of West Virginia voted for Trump, then you can write off 70% of the state of West Virginia, the population, as being the most ignorant, savage motherfuckers to ever walk the earth. 70% voted for Trump. Unbelievable. Sanders ticked through individual policies within the Build Back Better measure that polling shows are highly popular. Like, here we go, negotiating with pharmaceutical companies to lower the price of prescription drugs. Home health care for the elderly and disabled. Expanding Medicare to cover dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids. Raising taxes on the wealthy. And West Virginia? Look, West Virginia is a state whose residents are older, poorer, and sicker than the average American. And they, the citizens of that state, would stand to benefit more than most people from Biden's legislation. Now, West Virginians like to picture themselves as flinty and self-reliant. Matter of fact, the state motto, I looked it up, is Mountaineers are always free. Yeah, they're always dead too, right? But anyway, they're always free. As Karen points out, they're at least by at least one significant measure more dependent on government than any other state. Statistics compiled by the Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis show that 32% of West Virginians' personal income last year came in the form of transfer payments. That is, government checks that include retirement and disability benefits, medical benefits, welfare benefits, veteran benefits, unemployment comp, education benefits, training assistance. Mississippi comes in second at just under 30%. West Virginia gets more money back from the rest of us than any other state. And this pig son of a bitch Manchin is saying, well, if I can't go back and explain to the people in West Virginia, I'm not going to vote for it. You ignorant son of a bitch. You're stupider than the people you represent. When Manchin warns that Biden's agenda would create what Manchin calls an entitlement society, what the fuck? His state is already there. But to suggest that Manchin is misreading the politics of the people that send him to Washington is wrong. Here's what Karen writes. West Virginia was until relatively recently among the most reliably blue states in the country. One of only a handful of Democratic presidential Michael Dukakis won in 1988. As late as the 1990s, West Virginia's congressional delegation was entirely Democratic. Now, it wasn't clearly recognized at the time, but a turning point in West Virginia politics came in the 2000 election when George W. Bush became the first non-incumbent Republican nominee to win West Virginia since 1928. Or, as Karen points out, it would be more accurate to say that the Democratic standard bearer, Al Gore at the time, who was viewed by West Virginians as an extremist on guns and the environment, Al Gore lost that state's 5 electoral votes, which would have given him the presidency in 2000. Each Democratic nominee since then, with a narrow exception for Joe Biden, has done worse and worse in West Virginia. And last year, as I mentioned, Trump won nearly 70% of West Virginia vote. Karen explains it this way: partisan tribalism, cultural issues, and an attachment to the vanishing coal industry drive voter sentiment there, creating what is paradoxically a hostility to government. A man from Summers County told her a couple of years ago, quote, "Washington's 100% against us. They don't like our jobs. They don't like our attitudes," end quote. I mean, what? Oh, well. Manchin, by the way, is also a former governor. Is probably the only Democrat alive who would have a prayer these days of winning statewide in West Virginia, according to Karen. And the fact is, if we were not around, Republicans would hold a Senate majority. Well, they might as well, right? Manchin himself has pointed out if his party wants a bigger spending package, it should do a better job of electing liberals. Oh, isn't that a smarmy little snotty statement, huh? Anyway, after Manchin announced at the Fox Sewer on Sunday that I cannot vote to move forward on this mammoth piece of legislation, after he said that, the White House press secretary indicated in terms of political statements was a blistering statement that Biden's team will try to nudge him back into negotiations. It's possible to see a scenario in which Manchin might support some of the legislation's core provisions that go directly into the pockets of these poor, miserable fuckers who live in his state, like the child tax credit. In exchange, Manchin would probably want Biden to get rid of other parts of it, like the climate initiatives, which would move the country away from dirty energy sources like coal. Karen concludes with this: ultimately, Manchin knows better than liberal naysayers that this legislation, or anything else that carries the Democratic brand, will face skepticism in West Virginia that has little to do with its merits. But he is also well aware that government has a vital role when it comes to bettering the lives and futures of his constituents, which means things might not be over yet for some version of the Build Back Better bill. Well, Karen Tumulty, if you want to believe that, go ahead. I've just totally written off Joe Manchin. He is a fascistic poser. I don't know what the hell his game plan is. Now he's whining and crying like a little baby about, the Democratic caucus is not treating him nicely. Oh, fuck you, Manchin. I mean, seriously, look what you're doing. One person holding up legislation that would benefit one way or the other about, 300 million plus Americans, not to mention all of us where it concerns the climate initiatives. And there stands Joe Manchin, like some rabid dog in the manger, just saying, no, ain't gonna move, ain't gonna do it. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.